What would you do if you discovered your dead son had a secret child you never knew about? Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves emotional stories, and subscribe to Viral Tales so you never miss our amazing content. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We absolutely love hearing from you. The rain fell softly on the cemetery that cold November afternoon. Eleanor Whitmore walked slowly between the graves, carrying white roses for her son. At 55 years old, Eleanor was one of the richest women in the country. She owned Whitmore Industries, a company worth billions of dollars. But all her money couldn't bring back the one person she loved most, her son James. James had died 3 years ago in a terrible car crash. He was only 28 years old. Eleanor's heart still hurt every single day. She visited his grave once a week, always alone, always sad. But today was different. As Eleanor got closer to James's grave, she saw something that made her stop walking. Her mouth fell open in surprise. There, sitting right in front of her son's marble stone, was a young black woman. The woman wore a cheap waitress uniform with stains on it. She was crying hard, her whole body shaking. Next to her sat a small boy, maybe 4 years old. The little boy was crying too. Eleanor felt angry. This was her private time with her son. Who were these strangers? Why were they at James's grave? "Excuse me," Eleanor said in a cold voice. "You're at the wrong grave. Please leave." The young woman looked up. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. She had a kind face, even though she looked very tired. "I'm so sorry," the woman said softly. "I didn't know anyone was coming today." "This is my son's grave," Eleanor said, her voice sharp like a knife. "I come here every week." "Who are you? Why are you here?" The little boy looked up at Eleanor. That's when she saw his eyes. Eleanor felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. The boy had bright green eyes, the exact same green eyes James had. The same eyes Eleanor saw in her own mirror every morning. The same unusual shade that ran in the Whitmore family for generations. Her legs felt weak. Her hands started shaking. "My name is Maya Robinson," the young woman said quietly. She wiped her tears with her hand. "I work at Joe's Diner downtown. I bring Ethan here every month because—" She stopped talking and looked at the little boy. "Because James was very important to us." "Important how?" Eleanor whispered. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. Maya took a deep breath. She looked scared, but she looked Eleanor straight in the eyes. "Because Ethan is James's son, and because I promised James the First would always take care of him, no matter what happened." The roses fell from Eleanor's hands. They scattered across the wet grass and onto the cold stone. Eleanor stared at the little boy, at Ethan, and felt her whole world turning upside down. "That's impossible," Eleanor said, but her voice was shaking. "James never told me about any child. He never mentioned you. I would have known." "James wanted to tell you," Maya said. Tears rolled down her cheeks again. "He was planning to introduce us. But then the accident happened, and he never got the chance." Eleanor looked at Ethan again. The boy was playing with a small toy car, making quiet engine noises. He had James's eyes. He had James's thick, dark hair. He even had the same little dimple in his left cheek that James had when he was young. 3 years. For 3 whole years, Eleanor had believed her family line had ended with James. 3 years of crying alone. 3 years of thinking she would never have grandchildren. And now this woman was telling her she had a grandson? A grandson who had been alive this whole time? "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Eleanor asked. Her business mind was starting to work again. "How do I know you're not just trying to get money from me? Do you know who I am?" Maya's face changed. She looked hurt. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore, I know exactly who you are. Everyone in the city knows who you are. But I'm not here for your money. I come here every month to let Ethan talk to his father. That's all. If James was his father, why didn't you contact me after he died?" Eleanor demanded. "Why hide this child from me for 3 years?" Maya looked away. "Because I was scared," she said quietly. "I'm just a waitress. I work 2 jobs to keep Ethan fed and clothed. I live in a tiny apartment. I have nothing to offer him except love. I thought maybe you would try to take him away from me. That's what rich people do, isn't it? They take what they want. Eleanor felt anger rising in her chest, but also something else, confusion. If this woman was lying, she was very good at it. And those eyes, Ethan's eyes were definitely Whitmore eyes. I want a DNA test, Eleanor said firmly. Tomorrow, I'll send my driver to pick you up. Maya nodded slowly. Okay, but Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to understand something. Whether you believe me or not, Ethan is my son too. James and I, we loved each other. He was going to... She stopped talking and wiped her eyes again. He was going to what? Eleanor asked. Maya looked at Ethan, then back at Eleanor. He was going to marry me. We were engaged. I have the ring he gave me. It's small and cheap, but it was his mother's ring from when she was young. He said it was the only thing of hers he had left. Eleanor felt dizzy. That ring. She remembered that ring. It was a simple silver band with a tiny diamond. Her mother had worn it every day until she died. Eleanor had given it to James when he turned 21, telling him to give it to someone special one day. Show me, Eleanor whispered. Maya reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. Even from where Eleanor stood, she could see it was the same ring. The rain started falling harder. All three of them were getting wet, but nobody moved. Eleanor looked at Maya, then at Ethan, then at James's grave. Her son had loved this woman. Her son had a child. Her son had been planning a life with them, and she had known nothing about it. Why? Why would James keep this secret from her? There's something you're not telling me, Eleanor said slowly. James told me everything. We were close. Why would he hide you and Ethan from me? Maya's face showed fear again. She pulled Ethan closer to her. Mrs. Whitmore, I think there are things about James's life that nobody told you. Things that some people wanted to keep secret. But I'm not the one who should tell you. That's not my place. What are you talking about? Eleanor felt her anger coming back. Stop speaking in riddles. If you know something about my son, tell me right now. But Maya was standing up, picking up Ethan. I'll come for the DNA test tomorrow, she said. But, Mrs. Whitmore, please be careful. When you start looking for answers, you might not like what you find. Some people very close to you didn't want James to be with me. Some people went to great lengths to keep us apart. Before Eleanor could ask more questions, Maya was walking away quickly, holding Ethan's hand. Eleanor watched them disappear between the graves, feeling more confused than she had ever felt in her entire life. She looked down at James's grave. What secrets were you keeping, my son? She whispered. And who was trying to keep you away from that woman and your child? Eleanor picked up her wet roses and placed them on the grave, but her mind was already working, already planning. Tomorrow she would get answers. Tomorrow she would find out the truth. What she didn't know was that the truth would destroy everything she thought she knew about her perfect life. 2 weeks had passed since that rainy day at the cemetery. Eleanor had turned her private library into a detective's office. Papers covered every inch of her big wooden desk. Reports, photographs, and documents were spread everywhere. Eleanor's assistant, Richard Chun, stood quietly beside her chair. He had worked for Eleanor for 15 years. He had seen her make tough business decisions without blinking, but he had never seen her this upset before. Tell me everything you found, Eleanor said, staring at a photograph of Maya and Ethan at a playground. Richard opened a thick folder. Maya Robinson, 26 years old. No family that we could find. She grew up in foster care. She works 60 hours a week at 2 different jobs just to pay rent and buy food. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in the poorest part of the city. The building has rats and broken heating. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Her grandson was living like that? She never went to college, Richard continued. Barely finished high school because she was working to support herself. No criminal record. Everyone we talk to says she's kind, honest, and works harder than anyone they know. Her landlord says she's never missed a rent payment, even when it means she doesn't eat. Eleanor felt something twist in her chest. This wasn't the gold digger she had expected to find. This was a young woman fighting to survive. What about the DNA test? Eleanor asked. Richard handed her a sealed envelope. The results came this morning. Eleanor's hands shook as she opened it. She read the words once, then twice, then 3 times. The probability of Ethan being James's biological son was 99.9%. There was no doubt. Ethan was her grandson. Eleanor closed her eyes. She had a grandson, a beautiful little boy with James's eyes. And he was living in poverty while she sat in a mansion with 20 empty rooms. There's something else, Richard said quietly. Something very strange. What? Eleanor looked up. We couldn't find any birth certificate for Ethan. No hospital records. No doctor's visits when he was born. It's like his mother never existed on paper. Maya's name isn't listed as his mother anywhere official. We can't find out who actually gave birth to him. Eleanor frowned. That doesn't make sense. Every child born in a hospital has records. Exactly, Richard said, which means either he wasn't born in a hospital or someone erased the records. And there's more. I found something about James's accident. Eleanor's heart started beating faster. What about it? The police report says James was driving alone that night, but I talked to the mechanic who examined the car. He said there were 2 coffee cups in the car. 2. And the passenger seat was pushed back, like someone tall had been sitting there. You think someone was with James when he crashed? Eleanor whispered. I think someone was there, and I think that someone made sure the police didn't know about it, Richard said carefully. Eleanor stood up and walked to a window. Her mind was racing. James had a secret child. Someone had hidden that child's birth records. Someone might have been with James when he died. And Maya had said that people close to Eleanor had tried to keep James and Maya apart. Schedule a meeting with Maya, Eleanor said. Here, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And Richard, I want you to find out who was with James that night. I don't care what it costs. The next day, Maya arrived at Whitmore Tower. The building was 60 stories tall and made of glass and steel. Maya had never been inside such an expensive place. She wore her only good dress, a simple blue one she had bought at a thrift store 5 years ago. She held Ethan's hand tight as they walked through the huge marble lobby. Rich people in fancy suits stared at them. Maya felt their eyes judging her cheap clothes and her son's worn-out shoes. She lifted her chin and kept walking. She had nothing to be ashamed of. A serious-looking man met them at the elevator. I'm Richard Chun, Mrs. Whitmore's assistant. Please follow me. The elevator went up and up until Maya's ears popped. When the doors opened, they stepped into an office so big it could fit Maya's entire apartment inside it 3 times. Everything was white and gold and expensive looking. Eleanor sat behind a huge desk. She wore a gray suit that probably cost more than Maya made in a year. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Sit, Eleanor said, pointing to 2 chairs. Maya sat down, pulling Ethan onto her lap. The little boy looked around with wide eyes. The DNA test came back. Eleanor said bluntly, Ethan is James's son. That means he's my grandson. Maya nodded. I told you the truth. Why didn't you come to me 3 years ago? Eleanor demanded. Why let my grandson live in poverty when I could have helped? Maya's eyes flashed with anger. Because I was protecting him. I was protecting him from people like you who think money is more important than love. People like me? Eleanor's voice was icy. Yes, rich people who think they can buy anything, who think poor people don't deserve to be parents. Maya's voice shook. James told me about you, Mrs. Whitmore. He told me how you controlled everything in his life, who he could be friends with, what school he went to, what job he should have. He said you would never accept me because I wasn't from your world. Eleanor felt like she'd been slapped. That's not true. I only wanted what was best for James. What you thought was best, Maya corrected. Not what James wanted. Not what made him happy. Ethan started to whimper. Maya gently rubbed his back, whispering that everything was okay. Eleanor watched them. Maya's clothes were old and her shoes had holes in them, but the way she held Ethan, the way she comforted him, that was real love. That was the kind of love Eleanor had given James when he was young, before business took over her life. "Tell me about James," Eleanor said, her voice softer now. "Tell me about the James you knew." Maya looked surprised. Then her face softened. "He was different when he was with me. Not the serious businessman everyone else saw." He laughed. He told jokes. He loved taking Ethan to the park and pushing him on the swings. He said being with us made him feel free. "When did you meet him?" Eleanor asked. "For years ago. He came into the diner where I work. He kept coming back every week, then every day. We would talk for hours. He said I was the first person who saw him as just James, not as James Whitmore, the billionaire son." Maya smiled at the memory. "He proposed to me in that same diner, right at the counter. It was the happiest day of my life." Eleanor felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Why didn't he tell me he was getting married?" "We talked every week." Maya's face changed. The warmth disappeared. "Because someone told him not to. Someone convinced him that you would disown him if he married me. Someone said you would cut him off completely and destroy my life if he didn't break up with me." "Who?" Eleanor leaned forward. "Who said that?" "I don't know his name," Maya said. "James just called him Uncle Philip. He said this man was like family to you, that you trusted him completely. This Uncle Philip told James that he had to choose, me and Ethan or you and the family business." Eleanor felt her blood turn to ice. Philip Morrison, her business partner for 30 years. James's godfather, the man she trusted more than anyone else in the world. What else did James say about Philip? Eleanor asked, her voice barely a whisper. Maya hesitated. James said Philip had secrets. Bad secrets. He said Philip was doing something illegal with the company money, and James had proof. James was planning to tell you everything the week after the accident. He was going to show you the evidence, then tell you about me and Ethan. He said once you knew the truth about Philip, you would understand why he had to keep us hidden. The room felt like it was spinning. Eleanor gripped the edge of her desk. Philip, her trusted friend, had he been stealing from her? Had he threatened James? Had he been with James the night of the accident? Mrs. Whitmore? Maya's voice sounded far away. Are you okay? Eleanor looked at Maya, really looked at her. This young woman wasn't the enemy. She was a victim, too. She had lost a man she loved. She had been raising his child alone, working herself to exhaustion, all while keeping James's secrets. I need to ask you something very important, Eleanor said. And I need you to tell me the truth. Do you think James's accident was really an accident? Maya's face went pale. Her arms tightened around Ethan. I've been too scared to say out loud for 3 years, she whispered. But no, I don't think it was an accident. The night before he died, James called me. He was excited and scared at the same time. He said he finally had everything he needed to prove what Philip was doing. He said he was meeting Philip the next morning to confront him, and then he was coming to get me and Ethan. We were going to go to you together and tell you everything. But he never came, Eleanor said. He never came, Maya repeated, tears streaming down her face. And when I heard about the crash, I was terrified. I thought Philip might come after me and Ethan too. So I stayed hidden. I changed my phone number. I made myself invisible. All I could do was visit James's grave and pray that somehow, someday, you would find us and we'd be safe. Eleanor stood up and walked around the desk. For the first time since they'd met, she really saw Maya, not as a threat or a stranger, but as the woman her son had loved, the mother of her grandson, a brave young woman who had survived 3 years of fear and poverty to protect Ethan. You're safe now, Eleanor said quietly. I promise you're both safe now. Maya looked up at her with hope in her eyes. But Eleanor's mind was already working on the next problem. If Philip had killed James to hide his crimes, he was still out there. He was still in her company. He still had access to everything. And if he found out that Maya and Ethan were no longer hidden, what would he do to protect his secrets? Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She sat in her office with all of James's old files spread across the floor. She was looking for the evidence James had found against Philip. It had to be somewhere. At 3 a.m, She found it. Hidden in a folder marked Old Tax Records was a USB drive. Eleanor's hand shook as she plugged it into her computer. What she saw made her feel sick. Philip had been stealing from Whitmore Industries for 15 years. Millions and millions of dollars. He had created fake companies and fake bills. He had been moving money into secret bank accounts. And he had been so careful that nobody noticed. Nobody except James. There were emails, too. Emails between Philip and James from 3 years ago. I know what you've been doing. I have proof. I'm telling Mother everything. That was from James. Philip's response made Eleanor's blood run cold. If you tell Eleanor, I'll make sure that waitress and her bastard child disappear. You think I don't know about them? I know everything, James. Keep your mouth shut, or they pay the price. Eleanor read the next email through tears. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Philip. I'm meeting you tomorrow morning at the warehouse on Miller Street. Bring all the passwords to your accounts, or I go to the police. After that, I'm taking Maya and Ethan to my mother, and we're going to be a family. You can't threaten me anymore. That was the last email James ever sent. The next day, he died in a car crash on his way to Miller Street. Eleanor grabbed her phone and called Richard. I need you to get Maya and Ethan right now. Bring them to my house. Don't let them out of your sight. And call the police. Tell them I have evidence of murder. Murder? Richard sounded shocked. Mrs. Whitmore, are you sure? Philip killed my son, Eleanor said, her voice hard as steel. And I'm going to make sure he pays for it. 2 hours later, Maya and Ethan were safe in Eleanor's mansion. Eleanor had given them a beautiful bedroom with soft beds and new clothes. Ethan was sleeping peacefully for the first time in his life in a room that was warm and safe. Maya sat with Eleanor in the living room. What happens now? Maya asked. Now we finish what James started. Eleanor said, Philip doesn't know that we connected. He doesn't know that you told me everything. Tomorrow morning, he's coming to the office for our weekly meeting. The police will be waiting. What if he runs? Maya asked, fear in her voice. He won't run. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks I trust him completely. Eleanor's eyes were cold. That's his mistake. But Eleanor was wrong. Philip already knew. The next morning, Eleanor arrived at her office at 8 o'clock. Richard was waiting with a worried face. He's already here, Richard whispered. He's been in your office since 7. And Mrs. Whitmore. He knows. I don't know how, but he knows. Eleanor's heart started pounding, but she kept her face calm. She walked into her office like it was any normal day. Philip sat in her chair behind her desk. He was 60 years old with gray hair and a cold smile. He looked relaxed, but Eleanor could see the danger in his eyes. Good morning, Eleanor, Philip said. I hear you've been busy, making new friends, finding lost grandchildren. Very touching. Get out of my chair, Philip, Eleanor said quietly. Or what? You'll call the police? Philip laughed. I already called them. I told them you've been acting strange lately. Paranoid, accusing your loyal business partner of crimes because you're having a mental breakdown after losing your son. I have 3 doctors ready to say you're not fit to run this company anymore. Eleanor felt ice in her veins, but she didn't show fear. You killed James. I didn't kill anyone, Philip said calmly. James died in an accident, a tragic accident. Just like Maya, and that child will have a tragic accident if you don't stop this nonsense right now. You're threatening my grandson? Eleanor's voice was deadly quiet. I'm protecting myself, Philip said, standing up. And protecting you too, Eleanor. You just don't see it yet. That waitress is using you. She wants your money. She probably isn't even the real mother of that child. She found some kid who looks like James and made up a story. The DNA test says otherwise. DNA tests can be faked, Philip said smoothly. Eleanor, we've been partners for 30 years. We built this empire together. Are you really going to throw that away for some woman you met 2 weeks ago? For a child that might not even be real? Eleanor walked to her desk and pulled out the USB drive. James was real, and he found out what you are. He found all your secret accounts. All the money you stole. All the lies. Philip's face changed. The fake friendliness disappeared. Now he just looked dangerous. Give me that. No. Eleanor, you don't understand what you're doing. If you turn me in, I'll take you down with me. I'll tell everyone you knew about the money, that you helped me steal it. Your reputation will be destroyed. I don't care about my reputation, Eleanor said. I care about justice for my son. Philip moved fast. He grabbed Eleanor's arm hard enough to hurt and reached for the USB drive. But Eleanor had been expecting this. She pressed a button under her desk. The office doors burst open. Police officers rushed in, along with Richard and 2 security guards. "Get your hands off her," one officer shouted. Philip let go and stepped back, his face red with anger. "This is a mistake. I'm Philip Morrison. I'm a respected businessman. You can't just—" "We have a warrant for your arrest," the officer said, pulling out handcuffs, "for embezzlement, fraud, and suspicion of murder in the death of James Whitmore." As the police handcuffed Philip, he looked at Eleanor with pure hatred. "You'll regret this. That child isn't safe. I have people who—" "You have nothing," Eleanor said coldly. "You're finished, Philip. And if anyone even looks at my grandson the wrong way, I will use every resource I have to destroy them. Do you understand me?" Philip was dragged out of the office, still shouting threats. Eleanor sat down in her chair. Her hands were shaking now that it was over. Richard brought her a glass of water. "It's done," Richard said gently. "He can't hurt anyone anymore." Eleanor closed her eyes. James knew. 3 years ago, he knew what Philip was, and he tried to stop him. If only he had come to me first. If only I had been the kind of mother he could trust with his secrets. "You can't change the past," Richard said, "but you can change the future. You have a grandson now. You have a chance to be the grandmother James would have wanted you to be." Eleanor thought about Ethan's green eyes, about Maya's brave face when she stood up to a billionaire to protect her son, about James, who had loved them both enough to risk everything. "Send Maya up here," Eleanor said. "It's time we talk about the future." When Maya arrived, she looked terrified. "Is it over? Is Philip—" "He's arrested," Eleanor said. "He'll never hurt anyone again. The police found more evidence in his office. He's been in prison for a very long time." Maya burst into tears. "Thank God. Thank God." Eleanor walked over and, for the first time, hugged the young woman her son had loved. Maya hugged her back, both of them crying for James, for all the lost years, for all the pain. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor said, "I want you and Ethan to move into my house. Not as guests, as family." Maya shook her head. "Mrs. Whitmore, I appreciate, but I can't just live off your money. I need to work. I need to take care of Ethan myself." Eleanor smiled. It was the first real smile she'd had in 3 years. "I'm not asking you to live off my money. I'm offering you a job. I need someone to run the Whitmore Foundation, our charity organization. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who really cares about helping people, not just looking good in the newspapers." Maya's eyes went wide. "Me? But I never went to college. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know about working 3 jobs to feed a child. You know about going hungry so your son can eat. You know about keeping promises even when it's hard. That's more valuable than any college degree." Eleanor took Maya's hands. "James loved you. He chose you. And now I'm choosing you too. Will you let me be part of Ethan's life? Will you let me try to be the family James wanted us to be?" Maya cried harder. "Yes, yes, of course." 6 months later, Eleanor stood in the cemetery again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Maya stood beside her, and Ethan held both their hands. "Hi, Daddy," Ethan said to the grave. He was talking better now, using more words. "Grandma bought me new shoes. And Mama has a new job helping people. We live in a big house now. But Mama says we have to remember where we came from. She says you'll be proud of us." Eleanor knelt down and put fresh white roses on the grave. "He would be proud," she said softly. "He would be so proud of both of you." Maya smiled. He'd probably laugh at us. Remember how he always said you were too stubborn to ever change your mind about anything? I was stubborn, Eleanor admitted. I thought I knew what was best for everyone. I thought money and success were the most important things. But James knew better. He knew that love matters more than anything else. Ethan tugged on Eleanor's hand. Grandma, can we go get ice cream now? You promised. Eleanor laughed and picked him up. Yes, we can get ice cream. What flavor do you want? Chocolate, with sprinkles. As they walked through the cemetery together, Eleanor thought about how much her life had changed. She had lost her son, but she had gained a grandson and a daughter-in-law. She had lost a business partner, but she had learned what really mattered in life. Sometimes the greatest treasures come wrapped in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find what you really needed. And sometimes love can heal even the deepest wounds if you're brave enough to let it. Eleanor looked at Maya and Ethan and smiled. Her family, not the family she had planned for, not the family she had expected, but the family James had chosen for her. And that made them perfect. As they drove away from the cemetery, Eleanor made a silent promise to James. She would protect his son. She would help the woman he loved. She would be the mother and grandmother he had always hoped she could be. And she would never let money or pride or fear stand in the way of love again. Because in the end, love was all that mattered. Love was everything.